Oh, man. Ron, we're here again, dude.
Oh, is this a thing?
What's a thing?
All right, is this you starting?
Yeah.
All right. You're not doing the throat clearing thing?
No.
Man, I'm glad.
All right. Can I address a couple things?
Well, we're not live, so sure.
All right. For those of the listeners using iTunes, use the iTunes Podcasts app on your mobile phone. We'd so appreciate if you'd leave us a review.
Oh, yeah. Leave us a review, guys.
Yeah. All right. So if you're using that app, you might be subscribed. And if you go to the My Podcast tab, you won't see that option where you leave a review, which doesn't make any sense. But that's the way they made it. What you got to do is search. Damn, dude. Seriously?
Sorry.
All right, guys. Go into the search part of the app and search for Movies with Ron and pull up the main search page. And in those tabs, it'll automatically come up as the description of the app. But there's a tab right next to it that says Reviews. What you do is tap on that, and you can leave a rating. You can leave a review. It doesn't have to be very long. If you like what you're hearing, just show us a little bit of love. Now, if you're using Stitcher on the Android interface, have you found any kind of way to leave a review?
No.
I haven't either. You use the Android one. I use the iOS, and I can't find it.
Yeah,
but
I can't find it.
But what I did discover on the iOS version is there is a favorites playlist.
Yeah.
Where you can add it to that, and it'll automatically be in your phone next time we put a new episode up. So make sure if you're using Stitcher, put it in your favorites playlist.
Yeah. To add it to your favorites in Stitcher, there's a little plus symbol. You just click on that.
Mm-hmm. Have you been using the Google Play Music?
Actually, I have.
All right. Because I can't use it at all.
Yeah, that's right.
If you know anything, if people
There
have
is
trouble-
there is an option to subscribe
Okay.
on that. Now, I did not really go as far as to look for writing reviews
Mm-hmm.
on that yet, but I'll look into it.
All right. Also, I made a Movies with Ron Facebook page. And if you go into Facebook, just search Movies with Ron and just look for our logo, the same logo you see in the app or the website you're using.
With the marquee.
Yeah, and you just like the page. And then you can, we'll keep you up to date. And it's not always posts about our episodes. We can, like Ron, if you find an article you like, send it to me. I'll put it on the page. Stuff about movies.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, also, I wanted to point out, if we're using the current release schedule,
Mm-hmm.
Independence Day Resurgence got released on Independence Day. How about that? Huh?
What do you mean?
Last Monday. Are you not we're recording in a different time frame,
Oh, yeah.
but Independence Day came out on Independence Day.
Well, it actually didn't. I thought Independence Day was...
Our episode.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're releasing Independence Day on its proper release day.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. Because I saw that movie a week ago. I thought you didn't know what you were talking about for a second.
Well, those are the kind of things I care about.
Well, see, Independence Day, here's the thing is when Will Smith did the first one, they actually released it 4th of July weekend. And that marked, I'm pretty sure, the beginning of Will Smith pretty much owning the July 4th release date every year. So every year on July 4th, it would be a big Will Smith movie.
So it was like Men in Black and
Yeah, that's what they say.
Wild West.
No,
and
I
all
haven't.
that.
I haven't actually, researched that, but I remember that being some, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And well, this year they had to do it a week early because he wasn't in it.
Is there a Will Smith movie coming out?
I don't think so,
Oh, okay.
but I don't know. You'd know that better than I.
All right. What'd you go see?
I went to see The Purge Election Day.
Now, which one is that? The third one?
That's the third one, man. What the hell? Come on. You know that.
I've never seen any of them.
You've never seen any of the Purge movies?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, can you still tell me this movie without me having seen them?
Well, probably what I'll need to do is give you a quick lightning round of the first two movies.
All right, cool.
Are you ready?
Well, yeah, let's go.
Well, what were you going to say?
I want to know if we're starting in the theater. All right, go.
All right, lightning round. The Purge 1. Okay,
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke. He plays the dad of this family. Now, this is well into the dystopic future, semi-dystopic anyway, of one day a year, all crime is legal, and when these new government guys called the New Founding Fathers of America, or the NFFA, when they took over and they enacted the Purge, all the crime in America dropped to like almost nothing. Okay, so it's totally accepted and everybody loves it, and it's their right to purge, on Purge Day, which is actually March. It begins March 21st, so it actually ends up being like 3, 2, 1, purge. All right. So that movie is about this wealthy family that is stuck in their own house during Purge night, and they're being hunted from the outside because an outsider actually got into their house because his son let him in. And he was this homeless guy, played by Edwin Hodges, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he, as a matter of fact, ends up in all 3 movies. He's the only actor that appears in all 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
Now, in the first one, he didn't do much talking. He was getting hunted by some purgers, and the son of the family let him into the house. And so then the purgers outside, or the freaks as they call them, said, you know what, you got an hour to give him to us, and after that we're coming in to get you. So they actually tried to get him and to give him to the purgers outside, and it didn't really work, and the son was like trying to, playing both sides, helping him hide in the house and shit like that. And at the end...
most of the movie takes place in the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the movie takes place in the house.
Now, the way I've seen the previews for all the movies, it kind of seems like it evolves like Romero's Dead trilogy.
How do you mean?
Like the first one's they're trapped in the house, and then the second one is like all in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one is Day of the Dead. I don't know.
Yeah, also all in the streets.
Okay.
Now, by the end of that first movie, Ethan Hawke is dead, and the purgers are then going to kill the wife and the kids, and then her neighbors come in and kill all of the purgers, and they save them. And she's like, thank you so much for saving me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And they said, well, you know what? Don't thank us just yet. It's really more that not that we're saving you, but more like you belong to us, not them. And so then they're going to kill them. And they're all standing around him, and they're saying this prayer that people say on Purge. And then the homeless guy jumps in and takes them all hostage at gunpoint and saves the wife and kids. Mm. And so then the wife and kids, the wife just makes everybody sit at the table for the next 4 hours, and then afterwards, she breaks the nose of the bitchy neighbor lady that was all nice to her in the beginning of the movie, and then ended up wanting to kill her.
Yeah.
And so that's how that one ends.
Okay.
Okay. Now the second one is called the Purge Anarchy. Now the Purge Anarchy introduces an important character. He is actually a character that comes back in the third movie. It's played by Frank Grillo. Okay. Now I did not like Frank Grillo before I started watching the Purge movies. I actually watched them all this week. Okay.
Have I seen him in anything?
You have. He played Crossbones or Skullbones or whatever in Captain America: Civil War, and then also Captain America 3, whatever they called it. That was Captain America 3. Okay.
Yeah. He was also in the second one.
That's right. That's where he first showed up.
Creepy Hydra agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the leader of their special forces, and he was just a big dick in that movie. And that performance actually made me not like him. So, bravo to them, I guess.
Yeah. He's kind of a face.
Yeah, he is a face. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, the Purge Anarchy made me like that motherfucker. He was awesome.
There you go.
So I am a fan now of Frank Grillo. Now, he plays a father whose son was killed by a drunk driver earlier that year, and it ruined his life. It ruined his marriage. Mm-hmm. And so now he's all by himself. And the movie opens up with, it's Purge Day, and, it's like 7 hours until the Purge begins. And so he's like getting his guns ready and shit like that. His ex-wife comes to see him. She's like, don't do this. She can tell what he's going to do. He's got pictures of the guy who hit his kid up on the wall and everything. She knows what he's going to do. She's like, don't do it, don't do it. And he's like, just go with your new husband and, just go. And she's like, okay, be safe. And then she leaves, and he's like, you too. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is this across the world?
Nope. It's elsewhere in the country. The Purge only happens in America.
That's what I mean.
Oh, and that comes up in the third one, actually,
Okay.
very interestingly. So also there's this mother in the movie. She's a waitress at a little diner, and she's got her daughter at home and also her father. Yeah, this old guy, and she's really poor. They're all really poor, and she's walking home from work, and everybody's like, "You better stay safe tonight. Stay safe," and people try to sell weapons and shit on the street and stuff like that, and this one guy that at the door is like, "Hey, you need my protection tonight? Do you need my protection tonight?" She's like, "No, thanks." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And then, then the purge happens, and she's talking to her dad, and he's very sick, and she can't afford his medicine. He's like, "You know what? I'm just going to bed, and I'm just gonna sleep this stupid night away. Okay, don't bother me."
Mm-hmm.
So while they're making dinner, he actually sneaks out of the house and he gets into a limo and drives away. Then later, when the purge begins, they find a note where he tells them that he actually sold himself to a wealthy family so that they could purge him in their own home for $100,000, and that's all going to be deposited into their accounts.
Oh, jeez.
So they get all freaked out. But then, while the purge is going down and their house is on lockdown, that guy from the door comes in and gets them. And he's like, "That's it, you bitch, you're always treating me like shit. And you know what? Well, now it's my time. I got you. So then he's like, yeah, he's going to rape him or something like that. And he's got him cornered. And then all of a sudden there's some commotion outside, and there's this big team of black-clad, special forces guys coming into the apartment building. Nobody knows why. And, they came out of this semi-tractor trailer where this other big bad guy had, he's got a big minigun in the back mounted. So he'll just like drive by and open the door and just mow people down with it.
Oh, geez.
Okay, so they're coming out, and you can hear them going like, "Yeah, this is where they live. Go get them." They're on his list, and it turns out that they're actually after those two girls. So they're pulling them out of the house. They go in, they kill the guy, that was going to rape them, and they're all like a crack team of infiltrating badasses. Okay,
Yeah.
so everything is just like clockwork when they go inside. All right, so they're pulling him out, and Frank Grillo, who is on his way to that drunk driver's house to go and take him out for revenge, he runs across it, and he sees them being dragged out, and he's like, "Just keep driving, man, just keep driving." He's talking to himself, and then he's like, nah, fuck it. I'm a good guy, and I need to help him. So he gets out and he helps him, and they shoot up his car and everything, and he ends up being responsible for those two and then another couple, and he's just taking them through the city at night, through the downtown.
Yeah.
And it's just like Judgment Night, it's crazy. They're getting hunted, they're not just getting hunted by those guys, but they're getting hunted by this particular group of crazies, in masks.
Yeah.
And they end up finally getting captured by the crazies, and they think they're going to be killed, and the crazies are like, no, we don't need a purge, but we need money. And they're selling them to this group of rich people that have their own hunting ground that are taking bids. And they're like, "Well, this is the last purge of the evening, so, the opening bid is $200,000. Who wants in?" And people pay it. And then they all go into this warehouse or whatever, and all the rich people are up top, watching. So then these people that paid can go in and hunt the group. And because
in this warehouse?
Yeah, in this warehouse. And because they have Frank Grillo, who is a fucking Special Forces badass motherfucker, whose name is never said in the movie, he's just referred to as Sergeant, okay? He just starts taking them out. He takes out like 5 of them. And then they're like, "Oh, that's it. You know what? Let's call for backup." So they call all of their security guys, and they all come in with guns. Okay? Now, throughout the movie, you've been seeing all of this, anti-purge propaganda here and there. And there's this one particular figurehead. His name was Carmelo Jones. And he's like the anti-purge guy. And he's the one who like pirates their airwaves, and he interrupts purge news and stuff like that. And he's like, "This is wrong. It's the redistribution of wealth upward through killing." He's like, that's what purge is all about, because everyone says the purge is for releasing your pent up violence and anger inside. And that's why crime dropped so low. Okay. When they started purging. And he maintains that that's not what it's about, that it is about money, because of the purge. There's less housing, there's less poor people, because it's always the sick and the homeless and the poor people who get killed because they can't afford to defend themselves.
Right.
So he's like, that's it. This year we're picking up arms and we're fighting back. So they're in this warehouse fighting these security guys, and they're all holed up in one side. And then, boom, in comes Carmelo Jones and his team of guys. And one of his guys is the homeless dude from the first one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's like, they're like, who are you? And that homeless guy is like, I'm just a guy, I'm just a guy who doesn't like the Purge. And then Carmelo Jones comes in, and they're all like, oh, you're famous. And he's like, yeah, we hate the Purge. Come on, we gonna take care of this. And they just start killing all those security guys. And one of the chicks from the girl from the couple that they picked up, her husband got killed. He did pretty good throughout the movie. He got shot, but he still handled himself. And now he got blown away by the security guys. So they're like, come on, we're gonna leave. And she's like, no, I'm staying. I want to purge now. Oh. And they're like, all right. And then Carmelo Jones is like, we'll take care of her. So they leave her with them. And so then he ends up going and finally getting to the house of the guy. And he's still in the car with the mother and the daughter, who thus far have been like, you don't need to purge. You don't need this. You don't need this. It makes you know better. And he's like, you don't understand. I lost my son. And then he tells him his story and everything. And then so he's like, you ain't stopping me. And he goes into the house. And then he's just like in this couple's bedroom, okay? And then he just like hits the dude in the face. He's like, wake up, remember me? And they're like, oh, shit. And so he gets him on his knees, and the wife's freaking out. And Frank Grillo looks at her and he's like, I'm not here for your kids. I'm not here for your kids. Get on the ground. I'm here for him. And so he's looking at the guy and he's like, look at me. Do you remember me? Do you remember who I am? And the guy's like, yeah, I do. I'm so sorry. He's like, yeah. And then Frank Grillo, who has been stone cold the whole movie, just like loses it. And he's like, you motherfucker, you took my son. And he's crying and everything. And he's like, no, I'm going to take something from you. And then you just see the outside of the house and you hear, poof, you hear a shot. Mm-hmm. And then Frank Grillo comes outside. And they're looking at him and they're like, damn it, he killed him. He succumbed, to his animal instincts. And then, so he's walking out, and then, boom, boom, he takes 2 in the stomach, from off screen. And then the guy from the semi-tractor trailer who was running the security team comes up. And he gives a little exposition, and he's like, yeah, you see, I got a team. We go out there, and we pick up certain people, and we purge them, because it turns out that the country isn't purging enough, so we need to make up the difference. And I'll tell you what, son, you don't save lives on Purge night. You take them. So this is your payback for trying to stop me. And he had also shot the guy, but the bullet only grazed his cheek, so that established a vendetta that the guy had for Frank Grillo. Yeah. Okay, so he's about to, he's got Frank Grillo on his knees. Frank Grillo is bleeding out from his stomach wounds, but the guy's about to put one in his head, and then he gets shot in the head. And you're like, whoa, who did that? And you are reasonably sure that it's one of the girls, who thus far have been like, no purging, no purging. One of them had to purge to save his life, but then you see behind him, and it's the dad. It's the drunk driver who ran over Frank Grillo's son, who was still alive, and came outside and shot that dude in the head and saved Frank Grillo's life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So then, that's the end of the movie there, and, we leave with...
Did anything happen with that woman's dad who sold himself?
Yeah, you see him go into the house, and he's sitting in a chair in the middle of a room with a wealthy, Ivy League-looking family standing around him with machetes. So he dies.
All right.
And they get Frank Grillo to the hospital, and then it's all good.
Oh, so you see him live?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this third one, did you go with Heather?
Yeah, I took Heather. We're on vacation, so...
oh, sweet.
Yeah, went to see a movie together. So we, I guess you want to hear about something happening in the theater, right?
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't really much to tell. Now, this was it was like a 4 o'clock showing of The Purge election year. And the theater was actually much more crowded than Independence Day was.
All right.
It was actually almost full. But it was still one of the smaller theaters, but there must have been, at least 40 people in there. So we're sitting down, and I'm going to be taking notes and stuff. So, I'm going to sit all the way on the end, and she's got an open seat next to her. And I said, well, now what, honey? When I bought our tickets, there was nobody sitting next to you, so you're probably going to be fine. But every other single seat in the theater is filled. So if somebody does end up, coming and sitting next to you, that makes you uncomfortable, and you get weirded out, babe, just deal with it.
All right.
And then I said, no, it's cool. I'll switch with you if you want. So, then we're watching some previews, and there was a bunch of previews. A couple of them, I don't know. They look like comedies or whatever. I didn't really connect with them, but there was one called The Woods. Have you heard about this movie, The Woods?
Mm-mm.
Now, I'm not sure, man, but again, it was just a teaser. But man, that movie looks scary, dude. Called The Woods.
They tell you what it's about?
Yeah, a bunch of kids in the woods.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, getting hunted and shit. It is a found footage movie, but it, doesn't look bad.
Okay.
Then I saw another preview to that movie Lights Out, that James Wan movie.
Oh, yeah, I saw that preview.
Yeah, that looks like it's pretty good. And then there was a bit. Check this out. Kevin Hart, you know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
Funny guy. I mean, absolutely awesome. He has a stand-up coming out, and that's all it is, man. It's just a stand-up, okay? But he's releasing it in theaters, okay? Like it's a big budget blockbuster, and he has filmed like a movie wraparound story for it, where he's like going into Vegas and he's like gambling for the money to finance his tour, and then it's intercut with just him live in like a fucking football stadium. It's like the biggest show he's ever done.
Yeah.
Looks pretty funny.
All right, cool.
Probably not going to do that one for the show though. And then after that, how about this?
And then he said this joke.
Yeah. And then he said, oh, no, hang on. You know what? I told it wrong. And then, check it out. There's this other movie coming out. It's all about Ouija boards. All right. Now, when the preview was starting, and I see all this going on with the Ouija boards and everything, I'm like, oh, man. And it kind of scared me a little because I don't know if you remember this or not, but when we were kids, our sister and I were staying up late one night watching a movie called Witchboard. And this is back in the 80s, okay? I'm sure if you watch that movie now, it'd be pretty cheesy. But back then, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
All right, now we were staying up late watching it. Mom did not know we were out there watching anything, let alone something all demonic and everything like that, right? So we're sitting there getting scared and everything. And then we start hearing Mom, like yelping for help or whatever in her bedroom. And we walked in, and she was having a fucking nightmare. And then it turned out that she was having a nightmare about ghosts and Ouija boards and shit. So at that point, I was like, never again. I'm never watching anything like this ever again. And they've made like 4 or 5 sequels to that movie, Witchboard. Yeah. And so when I saw this coming, I was like, oh my God, what if it's Witchboard?
It's a reboot.
Yeah, they're rebooting Witchboard, which means it's going to be like 10,000 times scarier. But it was just called Ouija, Origin of Evil. So... has nothing to do with Witchboard.
I remember seeing the covers of all of the sequels in the video store, and it would have a pentagram, but then some woman scantily clad in lingerie in front of the pentagram.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be like, oh, yeah.
As a kid or like, last week?
Last week there were no movie stores, man. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That sucks. So that about does it for the previews.
Okay.
All right. Are we ready? Finally.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go, The Purge, Election Day. So the movie opens up with this family being held hostage by this masked freak in their apartment or their house or whatever. They're just in the living room. And it's a little girl, a little boy, and then the mom and dad. And they're just bound and gagged on the couch. And they're all crying, and they're all being held hostage by this crazy guy who's playing creepy songs on an iPod. It's not really creepy. It's more like 70s funk. But, in the context, I suppose anything would seem creepy, but, it worked. He's just playing George Clinton and shit like that. And he's talking to him, and he's like, yeah, so you guys have played a whole lot of Purge games tonight. And they're all, like, covered in blood, all right? And they're all crying and shit. Even the dad, I'm, like, a little surprised that, like, there was only the one guy, okay? And all 4 of them are sitting there. And they're not, like, completely bound. Like, it really just looks like they're all just sitting on the couch crying.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, why they didn't just try to gang up on him. But, then we probably wouldn't have a movie. So he's like, so now we're going to play one last Purge game. And it's called Mom Chooses or something like that. And he looks at the mom. She's crying. He's like, you get to choose which one of you guys lives. And then it's like, oh, God. And then it cuts away. And it's like 18 years later. And
they've been doing the Purge for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we see... this senator, okay? She's a chick, she's blonde, named Senator Rowan, okay? And they call her Senator Charlie Rowan. and she is running for president. And everybody likes her because she's totally anti-purge.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's got like the low-income vote, and she's like a hero of the people. Okay, now her head of security is Frank Grillo.
Fuck yeah.
All right, yeah. So he's like all like happy now, and he's working, and he's doing what he does best. Security. He kicks ass. He protects people. He doesn't hurt them. And they're at a debate. They're at the presidential debate, and her opponent is named Minister so-and-so. Okay, he's not quite a very important character in the movie, but he does show up at the end, sort of. But we'll call him the minister. And he's the pro-purge candidate who is endorsed by the NFFA, the reigning government, the new founding fathers of America. So, and to show her kind of, rebellious nature, she goes against protocol and, like, walks out into the crowd to take questions and shake hands with people. And everybody's going crazy. They love her. And, she's like, when she was arguing with the guy, he was like, oh, the purge, it cleanses our souls and everything. And she's like, what is this? Murder is our new religion? Everybody just loves everything she's saying. So then it cuts to that same debate being shown on TV in a little deli, somewhere in the, I suppose this movie's supposed to take place in the Capitol. Mm-hmm. I find out that it was filmed in Rhode Island, but, and they really only show like one monument or landmark, which is the Lincoln Memorial, and they only show it for like a second.
Okay.
But other than that, I suppose it's supposed to take place in D.C. somewhere. So there's this little deli. The deli is owned by Joe. Okay, Joe's an older guy, and he's been running this deli a long time, and it's like a lower income part of town, and which is weird. Like they refer to it many times in the movie as a deli, but it just looks like a fucking convenience store to me. He's not cutting meat or anything like that, or making sandwiches. Anyway, they're watching the debate, and in this scene, we're introduced to Lainey, who is an EMT, and she's friends with Joe somehow, and she hangs out there. And then Joe also has this small, younger assistant named Marcos, and Marcos is like, yeah, she is going to win. She is going to win, but the key is, she has to get Florida. Once she gets Florida, she can win, and she'll be president. And Joe's like, yeah, fuck that. It doesn't matter. All politicians are shit. So fuck it. And there's also this old guy that like sits there and plays dominoes or whatever all day. And they're like, what do you think, man? And he's just like, I don't know why they made a point to show this guy, but because they only showed him this one time. But he's just like, all I'm thinking about is waffles and pussy. All right, and they're laughing. They all have a good laugh about it. And then over, you see a cutaway to the new founding fathers of America having a meeting. Okay, and they're watching Senator Rowan succeed on TV, right? And they're like, this bitch is gonna win. How close is she? Is she really that close? Yep, she's only a point behind, man. We're in trouble. And he's like, all right, that's it. You know what? We're gonna use this year's purge to clean house. So then over the news, you hear that they're going to do away with the rule that has been in effect the entire time for the purge, which is level 10 public officials are off limits for purging.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it's illegal to kill, like, the president and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Or senators or anything like that. And this year, it is now open. It's open season on anybody. No one's exempt.
All right.
So, that's how they're going to, they're going to take care of Senator Rowan.
Yeah.
So, Purge Night is coming up. And now also on the news, you see this. This is very interesting. This is where when you ask me, is this only in America or is this worldwide? There are tourists, international tourists, coming into the country just for the purge.
Oh, wow.
All right, and they're like, yeah, it is the American way. We're going to have to, we're here to kill and take part in the American dream, in the American way, yes. And also, you're kind of led to believe that they're coming in to do this now because this might be the last purge, if this woman wins, because she's so anti-purge. So they're trying to come in and get in on it while they can, right?
Yeah. Are they allowed to leave the country? Americans?
Yeah, I suppose. Oh. You can do anything you want,
All right.
But the problem is, anybody who can afford to leave the country can also afford to defend themselves.
Oh.
So it's really, that's why it's like the sick and the poor that all get killed. You know, like in the second movie, they were going through the subway system, trying to cut through the city, and all these homeless people were just hiding
Yeah.
out in the tunnels. You know, just trying not to die. So in the candy store, not the candy store, in the deli, all right. There's a couple of schoolgirls. Okay, real bitchy little schoolgirls, really entitled, you know, little bitches, walking around, you know, acting all stupid. And they're watching them on the security cam, and you see them starting to steal candy. So Joe goes over and he's like, "Listen, girls, don't make me do this the hard way, okay? Give me back what you stole." And she's like, "Fuck you, motherfucker." And this one main girl, it's weird. She's got this hairstyle where she's got like two big ball-shaped, pigtails, I guess, So she actually kind of looks like Minnie Mouse.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, this is to make sure that you will recognize her later on.
Okay.
Okay? So, she's all uppity with him and telling him to fuck off and swearing at him and everything. And then Lainey, the EMT girl, comes over. And she's like, "We got a problem here." And she's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And Joe's like, "That's Lainey Ruckers," or something like that. And she's like, "Lainey Ruckers?" Like she knows her. She's famous, on the street somehow. She's like, "They used to call you Pequeña Muerte, Little Death." And she's like, "Yeah, bitch. That's right. That's who I am." And she's like, "What the hell happened to you? You look like shit now." And she's like, "Fuck you. Give him back what you stole, or I'm going to kick your ass or some shit." And she's like, yeah, okay. And she's like, "And apologize." So she gives him back the candy, and then she's like, "Yeah, see you around, mister." So, you're like, if I was that girl, I'd come back and purge him. And so then we cut to the senator's townhouse. And Frank Grillo is like, "Why don't we just take you to a safe house where you're going to be safe?" She's like, "Nope, I need the common vote. What's the common person going to think if they see me running, on purge night? I'm staying at home." And he's like, "All right, then we're going to lock it down and deck it out." So they spend all this campaign money, I guess, barricading her home with all the metal shades and shutters and everything that come down.
Yeah.
That was a big part of the first movie. That's like what the guy did for a living, was he sold that stuff. And Frank Grillo is like, he's just running things. He's like, "Yeah, we need that over there." And he's running the show for upgrading her townhouse.
Yeah.
Now also on the news, you see footage of Dante Bishop, who is the new freedom fighter who has taken over for Carmelo Jones from the second movie, and now he's like the leader of the resistance, the anti-purge resistance.
Yeah.
And that, you learn his name is Dante Bishop, but you can see clear as day, he is the homeless guy from the first movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so now he's in charge of the rebellion,
Okay.
And they're saying, yeah, he's a criminal, and he's every purge night he does questionable things, and like you're led to believe that he's like going ahead against the the level 10 ban, and he's like trying to purge politicians and shit because he's trying to end the purge. So he's introduced via the news. While we're watching that on the news, we're watching it in the deli, and Joe gets a phone call, okay? And he's like, What the hell? What do you mean? What do you mean they're going up? I can't afford that. God damn it. Do you know what today is?" And they're like, "Sorry, sir." And he's like, What do you mean? What do you mean you're sorry?" Yeah. And then he hangs up, and he's like, "Man, they just raised my purge insurance by like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Oh, geez.
I'm not going to be able to afford this place, because it's not just murder that people do on the purge night. All crime is legal, which means rape, rioting, pillaging, everything like that. And there's always fires all over the city.
Yeah.
So everybody has purge insurance, I guess. So Laney's like, "Don't worry, you can replace all this stuff. It'll be fine." And he's like, No, you don't understand. I can't lose this stuff. I can't lose this place. So you know what? I'm just going to stay here myself tonight and protect it. And she's like, "No, don't do that." And he's like, "Listen, I'll handle it." And he's like, "Really? You're telling me not to stay out here and protect my place, considering what you do on purge nights?" And you're like, "What the hell does she do on purge nights?" And so then we cut back to the townhouse, and Frank Grillo is, he's like getting ready to lock down the house, and he's got a security team all over the place. So they lock it down, and he's like to the senator, he's like, "Now listen, you're going to stay in this room for the next 12 hours. If you need anything, you're going to talk to me, and me only. All right?" And she's like, yeah, sure. So then he's out there looking at the video on the big security monitor setup that they have. And she comes out and she's like, Leo. That's his name. Leo Barnes. Sergeant Leo Barnes.
Okay.
You finally learn his name. But I'll just call him Frank Grillo. So she's like, Frank Grillo, come and have a drink with me. And his second in command is like, uh-oh. And he's like, shut up, don't say anything. And he goes inside. And they're sitting down. And
she's single.
She is single.
Ooh.
Yeah. So he sits down. She hands him this, a glass with clear liquid in it. And she's like, he's looking at it, and he doesn't drink anything. She's like, relax, Frank. It's water. And he's like, all right. So he sits down, and they do a little talking, and, they bond a little. And she's like, why? Why me? Why did you apply for this job? And he's like, a long time ago, somebody took my son, and I had him in my sights. And I almost, on Purge night, I almost committed, a total atrocity. And I didn't. And now, because of your politics, your anti-Purge views, that's why I'm here, to help. So she's like, oh, thanks, that's awesome. At this point, in the theater, fucking baby starts crying. And I'm like, what the fuck? Somebody's got a fucking baby in the Purge, okay? A fucking baby. So they take him outside. So Frank comes out of the office from meeting with the Purge. The Purge personified. The Purge is there having a talk with him. So then we see... So then we see...
Who is he meeting with?
All right. So then we see Frank come out of his meeting with the senator, right? Where she was like, have a drink with me. And his second in command is like, oh, yeah, what happened in there, baby? And he's like, shut up. I'll take over here. Why don't you go take a break. Go watch some TV. Looks at this other guy, this other bald guy, and he's like, go find a bedroom, man. I got this. And then the Purge begins. And every time in one of these movies the Purge begins, you hear an emergency service broadcast where it's like, the annual Purge is about to begin. Now remember, and then it gives the rules, and it's like, Class 4 weapons and below have been cleared. And Class 4 weapons is guns, knives, machetes, anything with a blade. But like Class 5, let's say, would be like grenades and C4 and dynamite, Okay. So anything less than that, you're not allowed to use explosives. Anything less than that you can do. Like people use poison and shit like that, So the Purge begins. And then we cut to Lainey in an ambulance, okay? Now every Purge night, there's like nobody on the streets but like fucking purgers and their targets, whoever they're hunting.
Yeah.
People who can't afford to be indoors or something like that, or who can't afford to protect their homes so their homes get invaded, And here's this ambulance driving around the streets, and there's bars on the windows and everything, so it's like decked out to be, for defense. And they're just a couple of EMTs, doing their part, like driving out during the Purge and taking care of people that need it.
So they're good.
Yeah, they're good.
Oh, okay.
And that's Lainey and then her partner. I don't know who she is. She's not important. So that's what Lainey does. And, you're not sure who's financing it or anything like that. And she, you're like, why don't people just kill them? And she keeps talking throughout the movie. She's like, it's an unwritten rule that, you leave the triage van alone, and you just move on. It's an unwritten Purge rule.
Yeah.
Okay, so as she's driving, well, she's not driving, the other girl's driving, and she's just looking out the windows, and then we're treated to a montage of killing already happening in the streets. And there's some pretty cool visuals. One is, it's an alleyway, and there's all these fires burning and everything, and there's a big, full-size motherfucking guillotine set up. Oh. And you just see these people just like, chopping off heads, right there in the street. It's fucking crazy. And then they show the Lincoln Memorial, and that's the one, monument that we see. And on all 5 of the pillars, the center pillars that you can see anyway, on each pillar is a letter written in blood, and it just spells out Purge. Oh. The word Purge, I have never heard the word Purge more in my life than this week. They say the word Purge in these movies like it is going out of style, man. I mean, like relentless. You hear it at least once every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. So then also they're driving by this this woman who's screaming and flagging them down, and she's standing over a dead body, and she's like, "Oh God, no! Help me! Help me! It was a mistake! It was a mistake!" And then it cuts to Joe up on his rooftop. Okay. Now there is a resolution to that woman standing over the body. I don't remember when it happened, so I'll just say it now. It turns out that she was the guy's wife, and she purged him. You know, I was talking about these movies with Heather, earlier today, and I was like, do you realize, if the purge was real, do you realize how many people would kill their spouse?
Yeah.
Like so many, dude. Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So then the lady was like, it was a mistake, and she regretted doing it. She said, it didn't make me feel better like they said it would. And so then we got Joe, and he's up on the roof of his store, and he's got a little cooler full of beer, and he's like laying out his guns, and he's just like looking over the front of the store. And, somebody sneaks up on him, and it turns out to be Marcos. And Joe, the owner of the deli, just says, don't you know never to sneak up on a black guy? And Marcos is like, oh, sorry, but I'm here to help you, man. And he's like, I don't need your help. I need you to go home and stay safe. And he's like, no, man, I'm here to help you. And then, throughout the movie, Marcos talks about, back in Juarez, or wherever, he's like, every day was like the purge. So it turns out Marcos is like a real good shot.
Mm-hmm.
You learn that shortly here, because this car comes driving down the street, and the car is completely covered in white Christmas lights, and a lot of them. Like, it is super bright. It's a really cool visual in the movie.
Yeah.
And it pulls up and it stops, and then out of the car gets a bunch of masked purger freaks, but they're all girls. Okay, and one of them is wearing this creepy white paper mache devil mask with the words "kiss me" written across the forehead or whatever. Oh, but what do you see behind the horns of the devil mask? Those big balls of hair from that little girl in the store.
Yeah.
So it's her. I looked her up later, and it turns out her name is Kimmy. So we'll call her Kimmy. And so Kimmy gets out with her friends, and they're all, dressed all sexy and stuff, and they're also covered in blood, and they're carrying AK-47s that are all like chrome gold, and they have like bedazzled, stocks and everything, and it's just like, hey, those are pretty cool. I wonder if they did that themselves. So the guns are all blinged out. So they start, Kimmy starts yelling up to the top. She's like, yeah, we're going to burn this motherfucker down. I'm getting my candy bar. And then Joe shoots the ground in front of her, and she looks up and sees him. And she's like, oh, you motherfucker. Yeah, I bet you wish you didn't piss me off now, because I'm coming in there to fucking get you. I'm going to purge you, and I'm going to get my candy bar. And he's like, she's like, you suck at shooting. And he's like, I missed on purpose, She's like, yeah, well, fuck you. And then, Marcos shows up with his rifle, and he's like, yeah, I'm not a bad shot. And she's like, fuck you guys. I already took care of my mom and dad earlier tonight, so now it's your turn. And then Marcos just like, pew, shoots her. And he like shoots her fucking ear off. And like, that's it. And he's like, yeah, so leave, okay? And watching it, I was like, man, just shoot her. Shoot her in the face, man. This is bad. If I was a store owner, when she was giving me all that shit earlier, stealing the candy bar, I would have known I'm going to see her later, and I'm going to have to kill her.
Yeah.
Because she is definitely going to want to kill me after this shit. So anyway, they're terrorizing them, and he shoots her ear off, and then they all get in the car and they leave. And Joe was like, man, you're a pretty good shot. And that's when Marcos is like, yeah, every day where I'm from was like the purge, so I had to learn how to shoot. So then we cut back to the townhouse, and the bald guy that he had told to go find a bedroom and go get some sleep or something like that comes to the second in command, and he's like, it's that time. And he's like, all right. So then they manipulate the security cameras, okay? And they run it back so that now if you look at the security cameras, you're actually seeing like 5-10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know how far back they went. But earlier on, when Frank Rio was testing the footage and he was looking at it, he looks at one of the snipers on the roof and he's like, hey, man. And the guy like gives him a salute, and he's like, yeah, I see ya. So then later these guys, they manipulate the security feed So Leo or Frank Grillo comes out and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take it from here. You guys got this." And he's watching the security footage and he's looking and shit and everything's fine. Meanwhile, outside these security or special forces guys come rolling in, and they start sniping guys, okay, around the house.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank Grillo's looking at the footage, and he sees the guy do the same salute from before. And he's like, "What the hell?" He's like, "Yeah, I see you, man. What are you doing?" And the guy doesn't respond.
No.
And he's like, "Hey, radio check, sniper 1. Nothing. So he's like, "Radio check, sniper 2. And then nothing. But he can see them, just sitting there watching.
Yeah.
So then he plays with some buttons on the screen and everything, and then everything goes live again, and everybody's dead.
Oh.
And he's like, "Holy shit!" So he pulls his gun out and he runs into the office where the senator is, and he's like, "Somebody fucked us over. Somebody betrayed us. We got to go." And she's like, "What? What the hell's happening?" And these neo-Nazi, guys. It turns out because these special forces dudes, they're all covered in shit like swastikas and like white power, and Confederate flags and everything. And they're wearing these face masks. They have like skull teeth painted across them. It looks like something out of Modern Warfare or something like that. One of those video games.
Yeah.
One of those war games. But you could tell that they're all neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
All right, but they are like totally decked out and like pros. Okay, and they're storming the house. And Frank Grillo is in the office with the senator, and he's like, "All right, it's time. We got to get out of here." And he lifts up the rug, and there's a trap door, and she's like, "What the hell is that?" Because this is her house, So she's never even seen this. And he goes, "It's my surprise, my secret." And so they drop down into the garage, and they sneak out the back of the house, and none of them had known about it. So when they finally bust the door down, his second in command, his 2 traitor buddies, that were on his team, they're not in there. And they're like, "Oh shit, where the hell are they?" And he's got this laptop in a briefcase opened up, and they're looking at it, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And then one of them looks at the edge of the carpet, and it's a little disheveled, and so he throws it open, and then there's the trap door. So they open it up, and they're like, "All right." And then the neo-Nazi commander is like, "The targets might be outside. They might be outside." So then they run outside, and his 2 traitor buddies are still in there, and then the laptop goes, and it's all red, and then it just blows up, and it just destroys their whole house. I don't know why Frank Grillo thought that would be a good idea, because he's like destroying this woman's home, at what point he thought that he might need to do that. It's good that he had it, but even so, after they escaped the house, he didn't really need to do that. But
didn't he blow them all up?
He didn't blow up the security guys, the special forces. They were all outside by then because they were hunting them down.
Oh.
Okay? He just blew up the 2, bad guys, the 2 traitors.
Okay.
I guess he did get a couple of the neo-Nazis because they were talking about that later. So they're running, okay? And they get spotted. And one of the Nazi guys, he's firing at him, and then Frank Grillo takes a bullet in the shoulder. So he takes a bullet in the shoulder, and, she's like, "Oh, God, Frank, no. Come on, let's go." And he's like, "Come on, we got to get out of here." And he's just, taking it like a champ, And so it cuts to the ambulance, driving around a little bit more, and then Frank Grillo and Senator Rowan they're running through the streets trying to dodge, fuckers and crazy people and stuff like that. And she's like, "Who the hell is this? Who sent them?" And he's like, "Who the hell do you think sent them? These guys are skilled mercs.
Yeah.
They're definitely working for the NFFA." And so they keep getting tracked by these neo-Nazi guys, and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, look behind you." And he sees that there's this drone, one of those things you control with your iPhone or something like that.
Yeah.
Flying around, and it's got lights on it and everything, and it's just following them. And she's like, "They're using that?" And he's like, "Nah, that's a homemade drone. That's somebody else, but they're obviously tapping into the feed or some shit like that." It's a little convenient, but whatever. That's what he thinks. So he decides to shoot it, blows it out of this guy. And she had to help him. She was like, "Okay, it's behind you, and it's 30 yards back, and it's 25 yards up." So then he just turns around and shoots it. Boom. So the him and the senator are like a team.
Yeah.
So they're running, and they come across these dead clown-looking purgers, and they're poking them with guns and stuff, and then they come alive. Okay, it was a trap.
Cool.
he's fighting them off and stuff. And a whole lot of this movie is just like, gunfight action. So, he takes care of them and he gets them killed. And then they're just standing there kind of catching their breath. And then up behind them sneaks up a couple of masked freaks. And one of them is fucking Uncle Sam. Okay. And the other one is like this weird, crazy, creepy looking Statue of Liberty. Okay. And she's got like glowing glasses on and shit. And then they both just tase them. The senator and Frank Grillo both get tased by these two people. So then they wake up in the middle of this crowd of masked freaks. And all of the masked freaks are like, like Uncle Sam, Statue of Liberty. There's Abraham Lincoln. Okay, there's like Ben Franklin and shit like that. And like they're all like, it's like all patriotic American iconic figures. Okay. Yeah. But you hear them all talking and they're all speaking Russian. Okay, so they're fucking tourists.
Yeah.
And that's all. It's all going down, and they're just, they're all about to start chopping and shooting the senator and Frank Grillo, and then you see Joe and Marcos look over the top of the store again. Oh, and all that shit's happening right in front of their store. Okay, so then, just as all of these, these tourist freaks are about to kill them, they all get shot down by Joe and Marcos.
Sweet.
And they're like, "Come on!" And then Joe sees that it's a senator. He recognizes her from TV, and he's like, "Senator Rowan, come on, I'll help you." And so they go into his deli, okay, and Frank Grillo's like checking it out, looking at the exits and everything, like a badass guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, they got security cameras. He's like, "Yeah, we can probably hold up here." And the guy's like, "Yeah, you can stay here all night, if you want." And Joe was like, "Well, Senator Marcos here, he's got some advice for your campaign, And she's like, "Oh, really?" And she's like, even in the middle of all this shit, she's like being a good politician. And she's like, well, what, Marcos? And he's like, "Oh, no, it is stupid. No." And she's like, "No, really, I want to hear. I want to know." And he goes, "Well, Florida is the key. If you can get Florida, if you can get the senior vote, then you can win." And she was like, "Yeah, that's a really good point, Marcos." Maybe patronizing him a little, but, still being cool to him. And then all of a sudden, outside, they hear some commotion, and they look. And now there are 2 decked out Christmas tree light cars coming down the road. Okay? So then out comes Kimmy and her friends, and now there's a whole bunch of these, scantily clad little, teenage girls, all with the blinged out AK-47s, all rich girls, you can tell.
Yeah.
And one of them pulls out this big giant saw so that they can cut through his barricades on the front door. And, one of them is in like a big teddy bear suit. And then Joe remembers from earlier when Lainey said, "If anything happens, you call me." Because remember, she was called like Pequeña Muerte. So she's got a tough reputation, right? She's like, "You just call me if anything happens." So these girls are back. And she's like, "Yep, that's it, motherfucker. We're coming in to kill you." And Joe's like, "Okay, it's time to call for help." And Frank Grillo is like, "Call who?" And he's like, "Pequeña Muerte." And so he calls Lainey, and Lainey is in the back of the ambulance trying to help some guy who got shot. So her phone is just buzzing, and it's on vibrate for some reason, during the purge when she might need to be called for help.
Yeah.
It's on vibrate so she doesn't hear it. And then it cuts back to Joe, and he's leaving her a voicemail. He's like, "Listen, we need your help. We're going to die." Okay? So then, there's some more exchange between the girls and the people inside, and the girls have the both exits covered, and they're trying to cut in through the front door and the back door. So little Kimmy, with her funny-looking pigtails, is out there jumping around. She's got blood all over her face. They really showed her a lot, on screen because it was she made for a very startling visual.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden the ambulance comes zooming down the street, and Lainey's driving, and she's like, "Yep, I heard you. I'm coming." And she's telling her partner, like, "Hold on." So then she just drives straight into Kimmy and her friend, and they both just get run the fuck over. Okay? She actually knocks one of them out of her boots. You see the boots like flopping around on the on another car. And so she stops the ambulance, and she gets out. And then the 2 that were cutting with the saw at the time that she hit Kimmy, they didn't see it happen, and they didn't hear it happen because of the saw. So they finally catch on to what's going on, and then they turn her and start running towards her, and she just blasts them with a shotgun. And she's like, "Yep, all right, bitches." And then she turns around and Kimmy is like struggling, and she's like getting up. And she's about to get up a little bit, and Lainey just walks over and just blows her face away with the shotgun. Just shoots her right in the middle of the face. Her face just disappears. They show it on camera. It was great.
Sweet.
And she's like, "Yeah, Pequeña Muerte is back, bitches." And everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah." So they open the door, and Lainey's like, "All right, everybody into the triage van. It's cool. Let's go." And Joe's like, "No, I gotta stay. I gotta stay and protect the deli. I gotta protect the deli." And they're like, "Nah, man, come on, just come." So they all leave in the van, and he has to like say goodbye to his deli. So he's looking back, because they left all the girls at the back door. They're still trying to get in, so they're just gonna burn the place out.
Oh, okay.
So while they're in there, it cuts back to the Nazi mercs, and they're like, "Yeah, Team 2 on the ground. They said they saw that he might have her security guy might have taken a bullet in his shoulder, but we're not positive yet." And the guy, the leader is like, "Yeah, okay." And the leader had taken off his mask, and his whole head is just like covered in swastikas and shit, and like all this like, fucking KKK bullshit, all these symbols that I don't even understand, but I'm sure they have to be something like that, And he's got like little SS's tattooed all over his head, but he's like the leader of the death squad. You would assume that he would just be like some prisoner or something like that, but he's like a super badass special forces guy.
The guy who wants her dead, the other politician, is he the president?
Nope. The guy who wants her dead is the leader of the NFFA. And you bring up a good point, because he is the leader of the new founding fathers of America, and they are the ones who want her dead, okay? But it is unclear if one of them is president.
Okay.
Okay? Now, there has to be a president because they're having an election, So, I'm not sure that we even see the actual, the current president in this film. It would just stand to reason that the founding fathers are really controlling everything, and maybe they're controlling the president as well. So then, as the triage van is driving through, we see another montage of chaos happening in the street, and we can hear some dialogue going on between Joe and Frank Grillo, and they don't quite like each other, and somebody's like, "Yeah, Joe, he's taken care of us before, and he did a good thing. He let you guys into the store and everything." And then Frank Grillo's like, "Yeah, Joe's a saint," like all sarcastically. And Joe's like, "I ain't no saint. I never said I was a saint." And then we see outside, more shit going down. And they pass this guy, this big, huge dreadlocked black guy that's like standing up there bare-chested. And he's just like totally covered in blood. And he's just like screaming stuff out. He's just like monologuing to nobody, and he's like, "It's all about survival of the fittest, and who is the fittest? I am the fittest." And he's all fucking scary and everything, and they're just like, "Holy shit," and they just fucking drive past him. They showed a lot of that kind of crap in this, like they showed a lot more crazy people in the street, than they did in the last one, which is, I think the last one, the second movie kind of suffered a little bit for that. You didn't see enough of the freaks, so they show plenty in this one. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 the ambulance starts getting shot, by miniguns from a fucking helicopter. And helicopter is the neo-Nazi special forces guys.
Are they allowed to use that, the helicopter?
Well, I don't know.
Isn't there a limit on the firepower they use?
No, there's no limit on firepower. I mean, they're just shooting them with miniguns. And there was that government guy in the back of the semi-truck in the second one firing a minigun.
Okay.
It's basically just explosives. So they're trying to get away from, this team that's coming after them. And they're like, "Man, how do we keep getting tracked? I shot down the little thing." And then Frank Grillo is like, he looks at his shoulder. It's all bleeding. And he's like, "Ah, shit." Oh. And they're like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And then he just like reaches over into the side of the ambulance, and then he pulls out a pair of like, clamps or big medical tweezers or some shit. And then he just starts digging around in his bullet hole. And he's like, because he's fucking tough as shit. And they're like, "Oh, God." Even the people watching it are like, "Oh, geez." And then he like pulls out this bullet. And it's just like a perfectly shaped bullet. It wasn't deformed or anything when it came in and hit him, And then the back of it is like blinking blue LED. And he's like, he just goes, it's a tracker bullet. And like he knows about them, you know, like everybody knows about tracker bullets. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, it's a tracker bullet. And so he pulls it out, and they're like, what are we going to do with this? And as they're driving by, they pull into this alleyway, and it's blocked off. And it's blocked off by all these, like, bikers, you know, and then, gang members, you know, having a big, like, gladiator fight where they're all, like, in a big circle, and there's two guys in the middle, and they're using like axes, like battle axes and maces and shit, all these medieval weapons, and they're all just, like, going blood drunk and just like, yeah. And they're all fighting and stuff. So inside the ambulance, they're all like, so what the hell do we do now? And then they get noticed, and all these people are coming over to the ambulance, and the girl is like, oh no, it's an unwritten rule, you leave the ambulance alone. And everybody's banging on the ambulance going, let us in, motherfuckers. Like, yeah, nope, they're not going to leave them alone. They want to kill whoever's inside. So then Joe is like, wait a minute, hang on. And then he whistles twice, okay? And then he's like, you know, this looks like this is my old gang territory. This is my old, I was in the Crips. And they're like, wait, what? You? And he's like, yeah, I told you I wasn't no saint. And like, really, you were in the Crips? Or he was dealing with the Crips somehow. Anyway, from outside the van, you hear the same whistle returned, and it's the Crip whistle, okay? And so he's like, all right, now I hope it's the same guys, you know, that I know. So, if it is, then we're cool. They open it up, and there's all these gang members standing there out behind the van, and they're all wearing like blue do-rags, okay? And or at least the one main guy is. And they look at each other, and they're like, yep, okay, you know, you're cool, I'm cool, so it's all good. You know, he actually saved them with the gang whistle. Yeah. Okay, but the guy in the do-rag is like holding his buddy who is dying, and he's like, look, you got to help my boy, you got to help him. Okay, we're not trying to kill you. That's why we were banging on the ambulance, because he needs help. And so they're like, oh shit, yeah, we'll help your friend, you know, but and then Frank Rio's like, well, we need you to do something for us. And the guy just like gives him a look, and then it cuts to the neo-Nazi team tracking him down. And now they got a team on the ground, and they're going to get him, and they're reading the signal. Like, they're running down with all these, you know, super machine guns and all this black body armor and an iPad, and they're tracking the signal. Yeah. And they track it out to this riverfront, you know, and they're like looking around, ain't nobody there. And then the guy looks down, and he's like, oh, hey, Commander. Oh, look down, look here. And he just like picks up the blinking bullet. He's like, he got the bullet out. Well, then where are they? We don't know. And then they just turn around, and then that whole gang is up behind them, pointing guns at them. They're like, yeah, motherfucker. And they just blow them all away.
Sweet. Okay.
So he took care of like at least one, you know, small portion of the special forces that are after him. So then they're driving the triage van, and they start like going underground into this parking garage. And they're like, where are we going? It's the underground triage center. And so then they go inside, and it's just like this big makeshift hospital inside. And there's like doctors and nurses taking care of people and everything. And they're like, well, who does this? You know, who's responsible for this? And then Dante Bishop shows up, who's the homeless guy from the very first movie.
Yeah.
Who's now in charge of the resistance. And he's like, yeah, I am. I handle this, you know. This is the resistance. You know, look at all these people. And there's not just, you know, hurt people being taken care of. There's also like children, you know, and like homeless people that are in there, and just like poor people who are like in there eating and, you know, just staying safe for the night, basically. Uh-huh. So Dante Bishop is like, yeah, this is my organization. You know, we're trying to help people and you know, take down the Purge. And the senator thanks him, and you know, she's walking around and she's thanking everybody and talking to people that are in the beds and everything. And this is where taking the notes gets weird. I simply have the word tactics written. I have no idea why. All right. So I'll just skip that one. Apparently there were tactics. Okay. So the mercs are searching for the van, and they end up, you know, they're just looking around. They can't find it and everything. And then, so Joe was like, yeah, this is great and all, but, you know, I got to get back to the deli, y'all. And they're like, what the fuck? No, stay here, man. You know, you're going to die out there. He's like, nah, that deli's my baby. You know, I got to go back and make sure everything's okay. So Marcos is like, I'm going with you. And he's like, no, man, you stay here and be safe. It's just a whole rehash of the conversation on the roof. Oh, I'm here with you, man. I'm with you to the end.
Uh-huh.
So Laney is driving him back. And then at that point, it's just the senator and Frank Grillo down in the, in the safe house. And Frank Grillo starts doing a little investigating. And he's looking around and he sees, Dante Bishop. Dante Bishop runs off with some of his men. They got guns and they just leave. And so he looks and he sees his second in command leave this room, but he left the door open. So he goes and he looks in the room, and there's this guy on a computer. And he walks in a little bit more, and then he feels this giant hand come down on his shoulder. And there's this big, beefy dude behind him, and he's just like, "What are you doing in here?" And then Frank Grillo doesn't even turn around. He just slightly turns his head, and he just says, "Hand." And the guy's like, still holding his shoulder, and he's like, "I said, what are you doing in here? You need to leave." And then he's just like, "Hand." And then he just like turns around, grabs his arm, just like, blah, 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 blah. Takes care of him and like puts him on the ground, and it's all like everybody's drawing guns and going crazy, oh, they're all going to kill Frank Grillo for being in the secret room. And then the second in command comes back. He's like, whoa, guys, whoa, all right, chill out. And then Senator Rowan comes in, and she's like, what the hell's going on? They're all breaking up the fight. And then he's like, it's okay. And Frank Grillo's like, yeah, I just came in here looking at whatever the hell they're doing in here. And Senator Rowan is like, what are they doing in here? So then they're looking, and she's looking at the walls, and they got all these maps up and pictures of like of her political rival, the minister guy, who had at the debate had said that he was going to be spending the purge at Saint So-and-so's Cathedral, having their annual purge mass, So they're looking, and she's seeing pictures of this big church and everything, and then plans for the church. And she's like, what the hell is this? Is it you guys like going to break into that church? Is this where he's having his mass? And they're like, yeah, well, just so you know, yeah, okay, yes.
Okay.
What we found is a secret tunnel that was put in by the original founding fathers of the country. Now in the 50s, it was blocked up, but we found a way to unblock it. So, and then he says, it's a, cute little dialogue line where he's like, so the old founding fathers have now fucked the new founding fathers, So they're gonna sneak into the church, and they're gonna assassinate the minister. So once Senator Rowan finds this out, she's like, fuck no, you guys, you can't do that, okay? Then he'll be a martyr, and I won't fucking win, okay? I need to win, like, honestly, okay? You can't kill him, okay? Because if you do, it totally fucks everything I've ever worked for. And the second in command is like, well, Dante just left to go do that shit. And she's like, well, stop him. I can't. Well, then we got to stop him. So then they call Laney, and they're like, sorry, Laney, we need a ride. And she's like, all right, let's go back. So she brings Joe and Marcos back. And so then it's Joe and Marcos and Frank Grillo and the senator and Laney. And they're all speeding towards this church when they get T-boned by a big fucking truck. And the ambulance goes down. The ambulance, which is, almost its own character in the movie by now. It now has its death scene. So, it topples over, and everybody's inside, all like stunned and, all unconscious and shit. And then Frank Grillo opens up his eyes, and the senator's gone. So the senator, and then he runs outside and he looks, and then there's the special forces guys speeding away. So they got her.
Oh.
Okay. So the senator is now in custody of the neo-Nazis, okay? So then Frank Grillo just starts running. And he ends up coming up behind this church as Dante, who has been there for a while now, but just happens to be out there when Frank shows up. And Frank's like, hey, you guys, it's me. I'm unarmed, it's okay, I need your help, Dante. And Dante's like, what the fuck, man? We're about to do this shit. We're going to kill this fucker, And he's like, no. This is no longer an assassination, okay? And they're like, what? And he's like, this is a rescue mission. So then we cut to inside the church, okay? And Senator Rowan is being, she's being like tied up and hogtied by the neo-Nazis. And they're delivering her to the church. And it turns out that was their whole mission. They weren't there to take her out or anything like that. They were there to kidnap her and bring her to the church. Mm-hmm. Now, at the church, there's that minister guy, okay, the bad guy. And it turns out that that's his plan. And the NFFA's plan, because they're all there in the congregation, okay? And they're all going to purge her at their annual Purge Mass. Okay, so she's being tied up, and there's this weird little ratty-looking priest bastard-looking guy, and he's like totally silent, and he's all fucking weird-looking, and he looks like fucking Lurch, from the Addams Family.
Yeah.
And the minister is out there giving mass, and he's like, yes, sacrifice and purging and cleansing your souls and blah blah fucking blah. And then in the congregation, you see like the big government people, and he's preaching, and they're all chanting, purge and purify, purge and purify. And it's like all creepy and weird and cultish sounding, So Dante Bishop gets Leo inside. And Leo being Frank Grillo. And they go in, and he's in there with Marcos. And it cuts between them, walking through the catacombs of the church, and then the minister preaching. And so the minister has this his weird priest wheel out this other hostage that's tied up, and he's talking. He's like, "This is Lawrence. Lawrence was a drug addict, and he is here to cleanse himself of his sins by sacrificing himself for the purge." And the guy's just like tied up, and he's like, like, no, okay, and no, that's not what I want to do, you guys. Okay, and he gets wheeled out, and he's like. This is my weird fucking priest, and he's worked for the church for a long time, and he's going to be the first one to purge tonight. So he gives the guy a knife, or he uncovers this table full of weapons, and he's like, all of these weapons have been washed in holy water, and now they are instruments of salvation or some shit. Yeah. And the guy picks up a knife and then just jams it into the guy's chest and stabs him over and over. So you're like, oh, okay. We had to get rid of that guy because Senator is up next. So then he's like, all right, everybody. So now we have a special guest tonight, and it's Senator Rowan. And I invite all of the new founding fathers to come up and partake in this purge. So they all come up, and they all have fucking knives and shit, and they all say that prayer. God bless America, God bless the purge, shit like that. A nation reborn. It's the big mantra for the pro-purge people. And so then the leader of the new founding fathers, he like bends down, and he's got a knife on her throat, and he's like, fucking bitch, I fucking told you, god damn it, you were never gonna win this shit, so now here we go, now I'm gonna kill ya. And then Frank Grillo and Marcos are up in the back of the church, all the way up in the back, and then Marcos, boom, puts one right into that leader guy's head.
Sweet.
And so now that leader guy I'm talking about, that's not the minister, okay? That's the leader of the country, the founding fathers guy.
Right.
And so they all start scattering. And then they all just start shooting everybody, and other members of the congregation are shooting back, but everybody's pretty much running like cockroaches with the lights on. And Dante has not entered yet. So then, it all quiets down, and then they're like, oh, she's alive. The senator's alive. So they untie her and everything. And then all these NFFA security guys, their Secret Service come in. They're all just in suits. And they all just point guns up at the back of the church where they are, up in the choir loft or whatever it's called. And then everybody's just like, get down. So they get down, and all these guys just start unloading at them. But they're all okay because they're behind the wooden pews, which have always, in cinema been totally bulletproof. And then all of a sudden the shooting just stops, or you hear more shooting. It gets even crazier, and then it just stops. And then you just hear Dante Bishop go, where are you guys? Where is everybody? And then they stand up, and he's like, the fuck are you guys doing up there? So it's like, yeah, we've won the day, Indy. And they're okay. They took them all out. So they got the senator, and she's okay. And they're gonna get out now. But what you saw during the firefight was that weird, creepy lurch priest. He snuck away, and then also the minister had snuck away. And Dante's talking on his radio. And he's like, yeah, it's cool. We have her. And then you hear over the radio somebody answer back, and they're like, yeah, we have him too. And it's like, oh shit, they got the minister. And remember, Dante is going to assassinate the minister. Now, Senator Rowan is like, she starts talking, and she's like, oh shit, man, no, you can't do it. She starts talking him out of it. You can't do it. You're going to be no better than the purgers and shit like that. I have to win honestly. I'm telling you, I can do this, man. And he's like, nah, fuck that. And he goes into the room, and he shuts the door. And so he's in there with the minister, and then he puts his gun up to the minister's face, And he's like, yeah, motherfucker, now you're going to die. And then the minister, like, looks at him, and then he, like, leans into the gun, and he's like, do it. Purge me. Purge me. Cleanse yourself. Come on, purge, purge, purge. Do it. Come on, kill me, motherfucker. Do it. Do it. Kill me. Kill me. And then Dante just walks out, and he didn't kill him.
Yeah.
So then they're all leaving, and they're walking back through these, the underground, weird rooms in the church you never see. Okay, and they're walking through this room, and they walk into this room, and it is full of tied up hostages. There's like 25 of them in there that they were just going to sacrifice all of them. Yeah. And the senator looks at the minister, and she's like, "Man, you are a motherfucking piece of shit. I'll tell you what, dude. But it's like, it's still over, and they're going to be fine." And then the priest, creepy lurch priest, walks in, and he's got a gun. He's got a shotgun, and he walks in, and he just starts shooting, and he's about to shoot the senator, and then Joe jumps in the way and takes the bullet for her. Okay, and then he shoots at the creepy lurch priest, and they both shoot each other. Okay, lurch priest goes down and dies, and then Joe is laying there and he's dying. He's mortally wounded, and she gets down. She's like, "Oh, no, you can't do this." But like, I guess just as he was falling, Joe like screams out at the creepy priest. He's like, you can't kill these people. These are our white people, and like, that it got kind of a laugh in the theater. But then he's dying, and he's laying down, and she's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm fucking dying." And then he looks at her, and he's like, "You better fucking win," And I think Dante had actually also said that to her, and actually that is what Dante said. So then they're all, they're leaving, and they got these hostages. They're untying them and shit, and she looks at the minister, and she's like, "You son of a bitch, I'm better than you," and she just leaves. So then Frank Grillo walks up to him, and he's like, yeah, at the minister, and he's like, I am not as nice as her. And then he just punches him in the balls. And then the minister just goes down crying. Okay. So then they're leaving, and they're going out through the parking garage, and then the fucking mercs attack again. Okay. Fucking awful fucking firefight. Like big, huge, this is the climactic battle. Okay. Like you thought it was in the church, but it didn't last very long in the church. And this time, everybody's shooting. Dante, his whole crew, Frank Grillo, and Marcos and everybody, they're all shooting. So Dante gets into this vehicle, and he starts driving towards the mercs to run them down or whatever. Yeah. And he slams into them, he kills a couple of them, but then right then the leader of the mercs, that big neo-Nazi bastard, just like blah 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 blah, just shoots him through the windshield and just kills him. So in the third movie, the one guy that the one character, wasn't just the actor, but played the same character in all three movies, and he finally, we say goodbye to him.
Oh, poor Dante.
Yeah, Dante. So, but hopefully we won't need him now, because she's supposed to get rid of the Purge, but she has to live through this shit first. So then, the Merc leader and Frank Grillo start going toe to toe, and they're shooting each other. Now they're down to their sidearms. Bow, 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 bow. So then they run out of ammo. So then they pull out their knives, and they start going, and they're circling each other. Dun, 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 dun.
Are they outside?
No, they're in the parking garage
okay.
for the church, and they're stabbing each other, and they are both taking hits, man. Like they're both like covered in blood, and Frank Grillo, I think, takes a big wound in the back, and Frank Grillo's knife is one of those small knives that like you hold in your hand, and the blade actually penetrates. It comes out between your middle and your ring finger, so it's like you could just like stab somebody by punching them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the knife he uses. So it's like this little badass little stinger, Mm-hmm. And he's like, pa 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 pa. He's punching this guy with this knife, like lightning quick and shit, because remember he's a badass too. And he ends up turning around and then just slamming it right down into the top of the guy's back. You can tell like right sort of in his, in his spine area. And then the guy's kind of just like limping around, and he's obviously done some sort of nerve damage to the guy, and the guy turns around, and he's about to come back after him, like coming back after Frank Grillo, and then his legs actually start to like wobble, like real weird, and then he just falls, and then he's dead, And Frank Grio's all like, he's all covered in blood, and then he just goes, motherfucker. And it's just like, yeah, Frank Grillo. So then as Joe was dying, Marcos got up in his face, and he was like, oh, man, I love you, Joe. And he's like, Marcos, yeah, take care of everybody, whatever. So then it fades to black, and then it says 2 months later. And now it is voting day, okay? And it's news footage, and they're like, oh, and now Senator Rowan casting the first ballot of today, it's an honorable position, and so there she is. And now this is just in, now the senator, we've learned that she's won the popular vote in California and such. Oh, and now it's just in, Florida. She's won Florida. Yes, she has won Florida, and that does it, ladies and gentlemen. She is now the new President of the United States, Senator Rowan, and now President-elect Rowan will go and do some blah, blah, blah. And her first order of business is going to be, abolishing the Purge.
Sweet.
And so then we see Marcos in the deli, and the deli's all fucked up, and he's repainting and remodeling. Okay, and he's got a picture of Joe on the wall. Oh, Saint Joe up on the wall. And Lainey comes and visits him. And she's like, yeah, how's it going? He's like, yeah, this is going to be my place now. It's going to be great. And she's like, yeah, you know what? Joe would really be happy with what you're doing. And they're watching the news, and you can hear on the news they're saying, like, and now NFFA supporters and pro-Purge believers are now taking to the streets. They're reacting badly to the abolition of the Purge, and they're rioting and they're burning cars and everything. And like a little more chaos is about to happen. And then it just cuts to credits, and then you just hear this badass version of David Bowie's "I'm Afraid of Americans," and it just goes on. And that is the end of the Purge election day, you guys.
All right, sweet.
Yeah, it was actually a really good movie, and it definitely made me regret not seeing all of those Purge movies when I had the chance when they first came out. I did not. I have to admit, I didn't take them very seriously, and I'll tell you this: that was a mistake. I have enjoyed all three of them.
Well, good.
And just before we started recording, I was looking at Rotten Tomatoes, and they had it at like a 57 or something like that. And you know what? I'll go ahead and agree with that. It's a middle of the road movie. It's not a wonder. It's not an epic. It's not an Oscar winner, okay? But it is not a shitty movie, man. I enjoyed this a lot. It was good.
Is it a horror movie?
No, it's more like that movie Judgment Night. It's more like murder and mayhem.
Yeah.
Like criminal killing, not serial horror killer killing.
Well, all right. I guess we'll close it out.
All right. One of these days we ought to have some theme music. What do you think of that?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Bow. Movies with Ron.
All right, guys. Don't forget what I mentioned about trying to leave a review. Check out our Facebook page, and we'll see you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
See ya.